Brothers Grimm story for the spirit in the bottle, which might strike a chord with some people. There was once a woodcutter. Woodcutters in stories, of course, are always poor. Once upon a time, there was a poor woodcutter, but he worked very, very hard because he wanted a better life. And he saved up as much money as he could. And he sent his son to university, where he studied very hard and did very well. And after a time, of course, as students do, he ran out of money and went home to his father. And he said to his father, "I will go with you into the wood and I will help you with your work." And the father said, "Son, I don't think you'll be able to do it, you know. I don't think you're strong enough. Anyway, I only have the one axe." And the son said, "Borrow an axe from a neighbour. I'll come with you, I'll work hard." So, despite the father's misgivings, father and son went into the woods and began to chop down trees. I do not condone this, by the way. And it got to about midday, and thought, we will stop. We will eat. And the son said to his father, "I will go and see if I can find some birds' nests." So presumably he was going to rob nests or eggs, because of course people did that in those days. But of course we don't do that now, because it's a really bad thing to do. So the son was walking through the forest. He found the most enormous oak tree, a big, old, hundreds of years old, gnarled oak tree with very deep roots. Kind of tree that other animals can burrow under through the roots. And the son heard a voice. "Please set me free. Please help, set me free." And the son was looking up at the oak tree and thinking, "I bet there's some birds' nests in there. I bet I can steal some eggs." But he was intrigued by the voice saying, "Please help me, please help me, please set me free." So he followed the sound of the voice and rummaged around under the roots of the oak and pulled out a bottle. And inside the bottle was something that looked a bit like a frog, jumping up and down. So the son thought, "I'll take out the cork." So as he took the cork out of the bottle, something like a wisp of smoke rose up out of the bottle. And it grew, and it grew, and it grew into not so much a man, more of a giant, who stood there before him. And the spirit said, "You will have a reward for setting me free. But your reward will be that I will break your neck." The student looked at the spirit and said, "But I've helped you, I have set you free." And the spirit gave a long, low laugh and said, "No, your reward for setting me free is that I am now free to work my mischief once more, and I will begin with you and your broken neck." The student said, "But did you really come out of that bottle? Did you really? You're such a great big hulking fellow. How could you possibly fit into that bottle?" The spirit said, "It's easy. I will show you." And he shrank himself down into another wisp of smoke, which simply billowed its way down through the neck of the bottle. And as quick as a flash, the student put the cork back in. And he heard the same plaintive voice coming from inside the bottle. "Let me out again. Let me out again. I won't hurt you. I promise I won't hurt you. I will help you. I can give you money so you can live comfortably for the rest of your life." And it seemed like such a good deal. The student was tempted, and he thought, I would trust to luck. Although he may at this point have wished that he brought the axe with him. He took the cork out of the bottle, and the spirit appeared once more. And this time he said, as a reward for letting me free a second time, I will give you this. And he gave the young man a piece of bandage. And perhaps he was a little disappointed at this, until the spirit explained, if you use one end of the bandage over a wound, it will heal instantly. If you use the other end of the bandage, it will turn steel to silver. So the student thought he would try this. So he picked up his axe, which of course he had brought with him, and inflicted a wound on the oak tree. And he took the bandage and pressed it against the bark of the tree, and it healed instantly. And he thought, well, if it can do this to a tree, it must be able to do it to people too. And then he took the other end of the bandage, wrapped it around the steel axe head, and indeed it turned to silver. But by the time he had done this, the spirit had already gone. So the student walked back to his father, and the two of them carried on working. But of course, by now, the young man's axe had a silver head. So when he took his axe and went to fell a tree, the axe simply broke. And the father looked at his son and said, you see, I told you for all your studenty book learning, you'd be no good at cutting down trees. What are we going to do now? You've broken my neighbour's axe. How can I possibly find enough money to pay him for a new axe? The son said, don't worry so much, father. We'll work something out. Look, we've worked hard all day. Let's go home now. So the father grumbled, and they walked home. And the young man went into the town and took the silver from the axe head to the silversmith, who weighed it and said, I do not have enough money to be able to buy this amount of silver from you. I can give you 3/4 of it, and I will owe you the rest. And the student took the money that was offered, left the silversmith with the silver axe head, and went to the neighbour and gave him enough money to buy 2 new axes. And the young man went and spoke to his father and showed him all the coins that he had. And the father looked and said, well, how did you gain this money? You haven't been stealing. No, father, I haven't stolen any money. And he told him the whole story about finding the bottle in the roots of the oak tree, setting free the spirit. And he showed them the magical bandage that the spirit had given him. And of course, unlikely as the story was, the father had to believe him. And so all ended well, for the neighbour had 2 axes. The father had enough money that he never had to go to the wood. The trees were probably happy because there was one less woodcutter cutting the trees down. The student had enough money to go back to university and carry on studying. And of course, after he left the university, he became a very famous doctor, because the magical bandage that the spirit had given him did indeed work for all sorts of wounds. So all ended well. But what the story doesn't say is what happened to the spirit. Because, of course, Jacob and Wilhelm don't tell us. But I think we can work it out for ourselves that the spirit in the bottle was a djinn, spelt with a D. We all know about genies. We know about the genie in the lamp. Sometimes genies come out of rings. And of course, genies come from Arabia. When you storytellers will normally begin by telling their audience where they are taking them, because of course stories are a way of magically traveling. So if you tell a story from like the Arabian Nights, you begin with, this is a story from ancient Arabia. Then your audience know that you're expecting like a flying carpet, or a genie, a magic bottle, a lamp, whatever. I have listened to storytellers who've done things like, this is a story from Ireland, and they've tried to do the accent. But stories, of course, are great travellers. So I'm curious as to know how a jinn managed to travel from Arabia all the way into a German forest. But perhaps he came back with the Crusades. Maybe the gin in the bottle was the story that Crusaders learned and took back to Germany with them. Or perhaps the gin in the bottle travelled with traders. Maybe he got a lift on a boat that was travelling down the Rhine. Who knows? But somehow or other, a story from ancient Arabia managed to reach Germany, and must have spent hundreds of years under the oak tree before the Grimm brothers released him and turned him into a story. And now you can tell that story. And the spirit in the bottle, the gin in the bottle that we've let free, can travel with all of us as we tell the story. Or as maybe you can share my YouTube video. Because stories like to travel, and gins like to travel, I think. There is a story coming up which has a spirit who lives in a ring, and that's a good spirit. More like a genie, sort of your wish is my command, and kind of helps. Yeah, kind of like that. So there we are. Hope to see you again soon. And if you have any thoughts about how stories and genies and flying carpets travel around the world, do let me know in the comments. See you soon.